North stings the corner. You know it's coming. You still can't stop it.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It is September 2nd, not September 1st, but we are so pumped to be with you guys here on the Lacrosse Rundown. I'm Charlotte North. This is ESPN's Jay Alter. Full swing of college football season. So Jay's been on the road a lot. You've been in Gainesville, Florida this past weekend. Some epic highlights coming out of that college football game. But back to lacrosse for a little bit for you every Tuesday night, but you're also in the thick of football season.
Yeah, Charlotte, first of all, it's exciting just to have live games back, right? I had a couple of PLL weekends that was fun this summer, but there's just a buzz of a live event. It was great going down to Florida. Those facilities are unbelievable. I looked around, not just football, all the sports. You can see why a program like Florida has now been to back-to-back Final Fours in women's lacrosse, because their facilities across the board are top-notch. And I think it's something we'll talk about throughout the episode today. We're seeing the trickle down of big time football, right? Big time football brings in big time money. There is a trickle down factor that is starting to, affect recruiting in these programs at the SEC and Big Ten level. And it was awesome. That catch by VB3, as he's now nicknamed, Vernell Brown III. I'm thinking like that's the equivalent of just like a one hand snag. And then a goal, like all in one motion.
Almost like we saw in the PLL semifinals this past weekend. Xander Dixon caught a rebound and in one motion went behind his back to win that semifinal game for the New York Atlas, who will be playing the Denver Outlaws in 2 weeks in the PLL championship. But we had a couple of catches, potential front runners for catches of the year, yours in your Florida game, but throughout the college football weekend, that was super fun to watch.
And your BC Eagles.
Yeah.
I mean, are we going to the college football playoff? 66 points in the first game.
Is it too early to say that? I don't know. We'll see.
And we won't talk about lacrosse fan Bill Belichick. Oh, no.
Yeah, I know.
That was a debut to forget for our guy, Bill Belichick.
I mean, he has a lot of new players, okay? A lot of new players. Chemistry takes time. And, I mean, I'm not going to write them off just yet, just as I'm not going to write off the University of Texas, Hook'em, and Arch Manning. I'm from Dallas, Texas originally, so I'll always pulling for the Longhorns, but two teams that I'm not going to write off just yet.
This is the lacrosse rundown, not the football rundown. So let's get back. And you mentioned September 1st was yesterday. For those that don't know in our audience, because we do get a lot of people that aren't dialed in and they're learning the sport, what makes September 1st such a special date on the calendar?
Well, it's become a little bit of a national holiday, a date that some people stress a little bit more over than others, depending on what age you're at. But September 1st is the official beginning of the recruiting journey for rising juniors. So every summer, players, some of you guys right now in the chat go out and play in tournament play, and they go to recruiting showcases and go out in front of these coaches to display, their talents on the field and in attempt to get recruited, but you are not able to be contacted by these coaches until September 1st. Again, going into your junior year. So September 1st is that day for the 2027 graduating class. So happy September 1st to all of you guys that are 27s out there. But it's been really cool to see the trend of how this day has changed over time. This rule came into effect in 2017, August of 2017, of course, for that September 1st date. So I personally didn't experience this monumental day where, kind of the floodgates opened. It was more of a, you can be contacted at any point, no matter what age you were in. I saw players of my age, they started getting recruited around 8th grade, 7th grade, which is just ridiculous to think about.
So in that context, Charlotte, this is a way better rule in my opinion, because you should not be recruiting 8th graders. I'm sure this rule has negatives as well, but from that standpoint, I don't think anybody's ready to be recruited before September 1st of their junior season.
I mean, if you've never attended a class your freshman year of high school.
Right.
How are you supposed to know, what you're looking for in a school, whether it's, academics related, or it's, lacrosse related, or it's, anything? How are you supposed to know, size, location, major? You just don't know at that point in time if you're in 7th, 8th grade or 9th grade even. And so
is there a thought to push it back even later, or do you like the fact that you are in your junior season and you got to, obviously you got to plan, right? If you're these college programs.
I mean, I like that it's September 1st going into your junior year. I would definitely not suggest it goes any earlier than that, just because, players are developing. They're, getting bigger, faster, stronger. They're learning more about the landscape of college lacrosse, the different levels, Division 1, 2, 3. They're learning about the rigorous schedules. They're seeing teams play on TV and seeing, honestly, with today's social media presence and behind the scenes content that's put out by each program, they're able to really, become in touch with what each program is offering. And that's something that's new and special that we didn't have when I was going through the recruiting process either. So I think the more time you can give these athletes to really understand what they want out of their journey, what their goals are within the sport, the better. I think, this September 1st date has become so exciting because athletes, they work so hard in anticipation, and, sometimes it doesn't go exactly how, almost every time it's never going to go exactly how you thought it was going to go. But it is really cool to see all the hard work pay off and all the exciting, adventures these athletes are going to go on in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, and really dive into learning about all these different universities and all these college lacrosse programs that have different things to offer.
Yeah, you mentioned I was just down in the SEC at Florida. My wife went to Georgia, and this reminds me of SEC level fraternity and sorority rush, because it takes two to tango, right? Like, if you're the college, right, you've got your list of players. And if you're the recruit, if you're the 2027 recruit, you've got your list of schools. And sometimes it's easy. They match up. You're my top choice. You're my top choice. I think what becomes very difficult, and in the age of social media, you see all these 2027s, all your classmates posting, I'm committed, I'm committed, I'm committed. Your phone might not be ringing, and then the fear of missing out that Paul Carcaterra talked about on the Lacrosse Rundown a couple of weeks ago, what that does on your mental health and your psyche. I would say this, Charlotte, you've been open about this with me in the past. Like, you were not the number one recruit in your class. It doesn't matter when you commit, when you're recruited. All that matters, like, we hear so many stories of people that get found in their senior season. And they end up exploding and having a terrific college career. So it really doesn't matter if you are contacted September 1st, midnight phone call, or if you are the last recruit to commit.
I mean, and what Paul Carcaterra said, like, you start thinking, when maybe you aren't getting a call immediately, or, your phone isn't being contacted by the people you expected or wanted to on the top of your list. Like, that's when you start thinking about, oh, did I go to the right events? Did I play enough this summer? Did I, travel enough? And then you start, thinking, do I need to be doing more? And that's when you can start to, sign up for too many events and lead to, not performing your best. Like Paul Carcaterra was mentioning when he was a guest on our show. And that is almost, the path that I don't want all these athletes to go down with this September 1st date in anticipation, because, as you're working towards, getting to the top of this mountain of, finding your home and achieving the goal of earning a spot on a college lacrosse team, like, you can, think or feel the pressure and stress and anxiety of this looming in the background. And that can, make you feel like you need to sign up for more events, and you need to be playing more, and you need to, go out and play more in front of these coaches. While, we talked about it, us three, a couple of weeks ago. Like, I think the best way to, work hard and lead up to this September 1st date is to really just develop your skills and hone in on the smaller things, and not necessarily play in a million more games or a million more showcases, but really dive into what are your weaknesses and how are you going to tackle those.
Totally agree. That is great insight from you, Charlotte. I think looking at it from the school perspective, right now you have to manage at the ACC and Big Ten level, a salary cap too.
Yep.
It used to be you have X amount of scholarships, which I want you to get into because that can be a bit of a myth. But now we have X amount of dollars.
Right.
So particularly, I think we're seeing it at the Big Ten, like Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. They're making splashes early because they have some more resources than some of the other programs.
And you're seeing these schools use those resources to build lacrosse-only facilities and great recovery facilities, and have such strong staff members of nutrition, sports psychology, all the amazing coaches in addition to that. Like, you're seeing all these resources being poured into these lacrosse programs, and then also the resources that are available to offer these 5-star recruits to come, take a chance on a program or become, the next big star in their program and help get them to championship weekend. Because that is the ultimate goal, is to win. And you mentioned Florida earlier. I mean, they have poured in so many resources to that program and have seen so many, big time recruits go down to Gainesville and make them into a top 10 team year after year. And so, we were seeing Clemson do the same. We're seeing, all these big time athletic departments really investing in their lacrosse programs, both on the men's and the women's side. But, some of these schools that we've mentioned so far only have women's lacrosse and don't have men's lacrosse quite yet. But, it is so interesting to see, the bucket of dollars that are being given to these programs because of how fast lacrosse is growing and how much people love it, and how successful you can be at a big time school like the ones you mentioned.
Yeah, I think on the women's side, when we're talking about the sport in the spring, it's okay. Northwestern, Boston College, North Carolina, it's those three, and everybody else, they're a tier above. But when it comes to recruiting, you don't necessarily right now see that. I mean, obviously those three programs are getting great recruits, no doubt about it. But I think you're seeing the Clemsons, the Penn States get more into the recruiting conversation. And I think maybe over the next 10 years, you're going to see that NIL money and those resources, those facilities you were just referencing, Charlotte, start to show up as you stack good recruiting classes, and might, instead of, okay, there's really only 4 teams that can win a national championship. We go into a season and go, there's 12 teams that can win a national championship.
And how cool is that? Like, that just shows me that our sport truly is growing. I mean, people say it all the time, but it is evidence that, we've got Florida State adding women's lacrosse. We've got so many schools adding, Division 1, 2, and 3 women's lacrosse, and then adding resources into these programs, bolstering these programs to bring in those types of recruits and try to contend early on.
Yeah. And we'll think about it. It's also going to lead to where the best coaches go.
Yep.
So one of the best young coaches, Kayla Trainer, decides to go to Penn State, leaves her alma mater because they've got more resources. And it used to be, well, ACC and Big Ten, they're about even. I would say the Big Ten is nosed in front because of that football revenue getting trickled down. The resources you're able to commit to your lacrosse program is just so much greater. It's fascinating. And then, like, we talk about the Ivy Leagues all the time. They're in kind of their own silo completely, and it's amazing that a team like Cornell on the men's side can win a national championship when, yes, obviously there's great tradition in the Ivy Leagues, but there isn't the NIL component to the level that there is in the Big Ten and the ACC.
Yeah, they have scholarship limitations, and then they have schedule limitations as well. Whether you're in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, you're learning about what you want in your process, what you want in your journey. And for the Ivy Leagues, that's, a pro and con you got to weigh. The less lacrosse in the fall, the delayed start to the schedule, but also you're receiving a world-class education, and you are playing for a lacrosse program that, is nationally ranked and is often, contending in the deep part of the postseason. So, it isn't necessarily a limitation. It's just about what you want in your experience. And that is why I think, this September 1st date and this rule that came into effect in 2017 has been so helpful for these young players to understand the magnitude of the decision that they are making.
One question I had for you as I was thinking about September 1st in the recruiting process. So does geography hurt you? Like, you were in Texas, which is obviously boomed with lacrosse, but this was 10 years ago, and I think you've said only 2 schools were really hot on you. Like, obviously geography is changing, but is it still, if you're in the Marylands and the Long Islands and the Massachusetts, like, does it hurt you with this September 1st deadline? Because coaches might not have had eyes on you if you're playing in Oregon or Nebraska or Texas.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it hurts you in a sense of you aren't able to, or it requires more resources to travel to these tournaments or these showcases. Everything is a flight away, usually. And you're trying to go to where the most coaches are, or maybe the coaches of the schools that are on your list are. And that requires more commitment, more effort, and more money. And that can be really challenging. It can be a barrier. Now, something that has been utilized over the past 5, 6, 7 years a lot more is, video and content creation around you as a player. I was somebody who used highlight tape to try to, get in front of these coaches before I was, traveling to a recruiting tournament. I only went to a few. I mean, to hear how many events these kids are doing now, I mean, they're doing 8, 9, 10, maybe more than 15 a summer. And I went to a total of maybe 5 or 6 on the East Coast. And, it's not, again, not about the amount of events you're going to. It is about you as a player, and coaches can tell within a minute or 2 of watching you, what your strengths are, what kind of teammate you are, how you lead, how you communicate. If you can use both hands, they can tell almost instantly. And so it's not about, getting out to as many tournaments. If you're from somewhere that, isn't very close to an East Coast tournament, a Maryland, maybe a Florida tournament, somewhere up in Delaware or New Jersey or, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, you name it. Like, if you aren't driving distance from those places, like, that's okay. It doesn't mean you need to, necessarily make more sacrifices. You just got to follow the process, trust the process, understand that if you're working on your skills and you're working harder than everyone else around you, everything else is going to fall into place. And it's really hard to believe that. It's hard to trust that. But, using, highlight reels of yourself, understanding, you can email these coaches, you can get in front of them, in front of the screen. But also, going to, a few of these tournaments and showing who you are as a player in these settings. But I think, geography, it can be a challenge for me. I felt like I was playing catch up, and I was always stressed that maybe I wasn't in the same situation as these players who come from the East Coast. But it can be, it can be a barrier that can be, hurdled over with a number of different things.
Does the Charlotte North High School highlight reel exist somewhere?
Oh boy, I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. I was about half this size and probably couldn't catch and throw with my left hand. So yeah, I hope that highlight reel doesn't exist. But for all you guys out there, seriously, it is such an important tool that you can use, and it doesn't have to be super, edited and done up really nice. It can be, just a few clips of you playing in a game that showcase who you are.
Yeah, we want to hear your thoughts on the recruiting process. If you are a 2027 right now and you want to be vulnerable, drop a comment. Like, honestly, we want to hear what's going on now, because again, I never went through it. Charlotte, you went through it 10 years ago. It's evolved. It's changed. Who do you think has benefited the most, Charlotte, from, I guess, this September 1st being a little more organized?
Yeah.
And whether it's the recruits themselves, the type of program, like, where do you think recruiting's at in the year 2025?
I think it's in a good spot. I think, I think the players have benefited the most from being able to grow, develop, spend a little more time working on themselves as a player, as a teammate, as a leader, to get to the point of going into your junior year. And they also are able to learn, research, and really prepare to interact with these coaches. I think that's the most important thing as well. And then I think it's also benefited the coaching staffs who, are able to really focus in on almost one grade at a time. If you think about it, they're able to spend a summer watching, the 2027s, for example, they're watching that grade. They're looking at the different teams, the different players. Now we have rankings through different media outlets. We have all these different avenues where you can learn about players, but they're able to really narrow their focus on one grade at a time. And then September 1st hits, and these coaches are able to spend a little bit of time before fall ball starts and go out and recruit and go out and go make home visits or bring these recruits on campus and go to these big time football games on Saturdays. Like that is a really special thing that both the players and the coaches are given time to do. I mean, it does probably feel a little bit like a race, or you're rushing, you're competing against other schools starting, at midnight on September 1st, through the next couple of weeks. But I think it's a really cool thing that's benefited both parties in terms of what we had before this and where we are now.
Yeah, I go back to the sorority fraternity rush, going to a football game. That's like going to a mixer, right? You just want it to make it sense for both parties, and one thing that I actually think, I don't know if there's a way to do it, but I think a big part of your decision is who's going to be my teammate, right? Yeah. So is there a way to get as many potential recruits in the room before they have to make that commitment? I've heard that once you've made that commitment, they get everybody together, right? But it's, should there be an October 1st where everyone picks their top choice, so to speak, doesn't have to quote unquote commit, but can go and spend a weekend there? And okay, does this feel right before, the commitment, which I think comes with a lot of pressure. So
that's actually a great point. And, when I was going through the recruiting process and prior to this September 1st rule change, a lot of these visits were taking place in the summertime. So a coach would see you play. They would invite you on campus.
The campus is dead in the summer.
Exactly. Yeah. Shortly after. And every player, if this isn't already, at the top of your questions to ask list or things that you are curious about, they want to know and learn about the program. And that starts with your teammates. You just brought it up, but like meeting players on the current team and getting to ask them questions, getting to go to the dining hall with them, getting to understand, from their perspective, what's the schedule like every day? What's the biggest challenge? What are the pillars of this program and the team culture of this program? Those are questions you want to be able to ask, maybe your future teammates. And so now with this September 1st rule, recruits are coming on campus and the current team is on campus, and that is huge for these girls.
If you've got a question about recruiting or a comment about recruiting, we want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. If there's a guest you want this offseason, whether it's a college head coach, a player, a commentator like the great Sheehan Stanrick Birch or Paul Carcaterra, we want to hear it. So drop it in the comments because we want to hear what you guys think. As we kind of, again, September 1st is the beginning, but it's far from the end. So we're going to continue to weave this recruiting conversation throughout the Lacrosse Rundown off season. And I think, honestly, like we had such a response from the Paul Carcaterra conversation, and it's interesting to hear it from his vantage point, but we want to hear it from all of your vantage points as well.
Yeah, that was the last thing I was going to leave you guys with is it can mark the beginning of a really special journey. It also, is a celebration. If you are someone who is, committing to play college lacrosse, it's a celebration of what has been, of your journey, of how hard you've worked. But if you're someone who their phone was blown up on September 1st, or, you didn't get any calls, I would say the next steps from September 2nd on are the exact same. It's understanding where you need to grow as a player, where you need to grow as a teammate, leaning on your coaches for feedback and mentorship, because if you commit to your dream school and you stop working as hard as you did before September 1st, that's probably the end of the journey. But the journey has just begun for all of you guys that are 2027s and beyond. And the best part about this sport is there's always something that you can get better at. There's always something you can add to your game, and there's always something you can study and learn. And that does not stop if you've committed, if you're still in the process, if you're just beginning the process, if you're just picking up a stick for the first time after watching this episode of the Lacrosse Rundown. Like, the journey is the same for everybody in terms of how hard you're willing to work, and the rest will fall into place. So it's hard not to compare this day and age to everybody else around you. That was something I struggled with in high school, being from Dallas, Texas, seeing all the girls in my class already committed when I hadn't even begun my recruiting journey. It is very hard not to compare yourself. But as hard as it is, I want you guys to try your best to just keep your head down, work really hard, understand that if you do that, the rest will fall into place. Trust in your process. Trust why you love the game, why you love your teammates, and then, sit down with your mentors and the people in your inner circle and write down those goals. Maybe that's playing in college, and maybe that's not. That's just continuing to stay in touch with the game. We support you guys, so we want to hear from you, and we appreciate you guys. But shout out to all the 2027 players in the high school state of the sport. We are here with you. We see you guys. We understand how challenging this could be, but we're excited for you guys. And thank you guys for joining the show. We have some awesome stuff planned for you guys next week. So we'll be back next Tuesday. But until then, Jay, always a pleasure.
Love it, Charlotte. That was such great insight, and it's what makes this Lacrosse Rundown so special every Tuesday night, is hearing your insight and the thought and the care that you put into this game that we love. And hopefully it's helpful and supports all of you out there. So we'll see you next Tuesday.